Alright guys, and now we are back with the showdown between the Skaven, who shall be led by the filthiest of all rats, Lord Skrolk, and the Blessed Dread, who shall be helmed by a Supreme Sorceress with the Lore of Fire. So as far as the build goes, we are of course going to be mixing in a couple of the new units from the Prophet and the Warlock DLC. So let's go ahead and take a look. So firstly, we do have the Teethbreakers. So this is going to be the first time I've showed you guys these bad boys here on the channel. And the Teethbreakers have a pretty cool ability. They actually have concealment bombs. So of course, they're not going to be invisible right away. So you have to be pretty quick on the draw if you don't want your opponent to see these guys. So we're going to make them sneaky because Rattling Guns, they don't have the range of the Jezzails. They have 145 range, but they have massive damage. And if you're able to ambush your opponent, so for example, let's say they fly in with like a Supreme Sorceress or some other Lord comes in to kind of skirmish you, and you're able to open up with a huge volley just right in the face with the Teethbreakers, it is going to do lethal damage. These guys hit like an absolute truck. So I'm pretty excited to see how they do against his Dark Elf force. So we got the Teethbreakers here. On top of that, we do of course have the Natty Bubo Sharpshooters. These guys of course are just MVPs. Probably the best of the regiments of renown on the Skaven side. Great armor piercing, great range at 300. These guys just do work. They have shield breakers, so even if you're facing off against a shielded lord, they're going to be able to put some hurt in them, or single entities. Just great purpose all across the board. And they're always a safe pick, right? Because your opponent's always going to have a lord to snipe, and even if they don't have a big monster, you can just sit on the lord the whole time, which is always pretty good. Front line's going to be Chaffee, of course, and I really think that this is probably the best way to play Skaven. You can play them in a bit of a Death Star now. Ikit Claw plus a bunch of Doom Flayers and Doom Wheels is actually a very viable style of play, so it's really cool to see that Skaven aren't really pigeonholed like the Dwarves, for example. Dwarves can really only play like in terms of competitive play with the Mass Thunder line and just go super wide, but Skaven have a couple, really solid play styles now. So here in the back line, or in the front line, I should say, we have a bunch of Skaven slaves with spears going to be taking a beating for the Horned Rat. In the reserves, we have Standard Clan Rats, so in total we do have 3 of those bad boys. So basically you just send in the Skaven slaves, you let them get run over, and as soon as they break, you send in the Clan Rats, which is pretty efficient because your opponent is going to be fresh when they charge. Their charge bonus is going to be going off on the Skaven slaves, and then from there you can countercharge them. And anywhere that there's a real issue in your front line, you can simply use Skrolk or a Plague Priest to summon and really help out. On top of that, in the back, we got a couple Skaven Slave Slingers, so just in case you had some like Harpies or other harass units, I just wanted to have some steady poke, and they cost almost nothing, and oftentimes your opponents, my opponents at least, do over-prioritize Skaven Slave Slingers and think, oh, it's a missile unit, I need to shut it down, and it only costs 200 gold. On top of that, we have a bunch of Rat Ogres, so 1, 2, 3, 4, I think we have 4 Rat Ogres, and they're so important because most of the time, if you really want to beat Skaven, you just go super wide with Cav units, Dark Riders, like any sort of units, like Centaurs, and you just swarm in and just pressure the back line, and it is really tough. Skaven infantry don't have good mass, even Stormvermin do have problems holding, they just kind of get broken really, really quick. So having Rat Ogres is essential in my opinion. So in total we do have 4 groups. In the back we do have the Ikit's Zap Zap, so he's lended it to Lord Skrolk for the day. And Ikit's Zap Zap, that's a little bit tricky to say. It does have a really good ability. So if you're going to be targeting caster, it does add 10 seconds to their ability recharge. So basically you can either sit it on single entities and it hits like a truck because it does a lot more damage than the standard Warp Lightning cannons, or you sit it on a caster if it's an easier target. It's a little bit tough to hit these flying targets like this, but the Manticore is a little bit bigger, but it does add to their cooldowns, which is really good against casters. So that's pretty much it for my entire force. We got some Clan Rats with spears and also some Death Runners up on the flank. So I thought that Felcon might actually bring some bolt throwers and be a little bit sneaky. So I wanted to have something to get in there and cause some problems for the bolt thrower. So for the forces of Felcon, here in the front line, he has just a massive core, and going wide against Skaven is pretty good, not giving them too many big targets. So Dread Spears and Bleak Swords across the entire core, which will be able to fight well against Skaven slaves and probably beat down my Clan Rats. So that's going to be the entire front line. He does also have 2 Shades, so the Shades, pretty nice here actually. They're going to be able to get in. Obviously I won't see them coming, and they could potentially open up on top of my Jezzails as well as my Rattling Gunners, so that's going to be a pretty solid pick here. So 2 Shades and a Wild Charybdis pick. So I think that, and that's what's really cool about the new Skaven, right? You have so many different threats. People are going to be expecting Doom Flayers and Doom Wheels and Ikit Claw as Doom Wheels, so a lot of people are going to be compensating for those things and bringing, units like this, because typically you wouldn't bring a Charybdis against Skaven in my opinion, but now there's a little bit of justification, right? You need to respect those Doom Flayers and those other units and the Wheels of Doom. So now he is going to be bringing a Charybdis, which is going to be a great target for my troops here. He does have the Supreme Sorceress with the fire. It looks like it's fire up in this guy. So Fireball and Burning Head get to be roasting some filthy Skaven. Doomfire Warlocks, and Slaanesha's Harvesters. So a lot of cap pressure coming in. So those Rat Ogres are going to be very busy. So let's get the show on the road, guys. So the Jezzails are going to be turning downtown and going after the Supreme Sorceress. So a lot of firepower, but of course Felcon has very, very good micro. And you can see he does have the moves like Jagger. He's able to go back and forth. But he does take a shot right there, which is going to be adding to his cooldown. And even if he is dodging like 80% of these, everyone that does hit is really going to add up, and you can see here we're going to be getting the suppression. So the Rattling Gunners at their maximum range don't do a ton of damage, but nonetheless they're able to suppress his target and really butter his bread for the other shots. In the meantime, the Rattling Gunners are going to be opening up right here on top of the Charybdis, and they're doing pretty good damage. Where the Rattling Gunner really does the most damage is like if it were like right here in this area where I'm moving the mouse right next to these Skaven slaves right here, it would just be lawnmower level damage, just insane. Anyways, it's still doing a ton of work, right? The Charybdis is getting mowed down pretty badly. The Supreme Sorceress is just getting its bread buttered, and the Charybdis is going to be pushing in. It looks like a Burning Skull is going to be going down the ranks of my teeth breakers right here. And some of the rats do get roasted, but for the most part, they don't lose any models, and it's not too bad. But the Shades are really opening up, and the Shades doing a great job here for Falcon, but the Supreme Sorceress is just getting annihilated. And you can see here the Cryptus is just getting taken to town by these, I'm just so excited I'm losing my voice here. The Teethbreakers are just doing so much work. I did lose a couple to those Shades, but for the most part, pretty good. The Cryptus, of course, like the Hydra, unlike the Hydra, does not regenerate, so we're able to really get a ton of damage on that guy. In the meantime, some of the Slaanesha's Harvesters and other troops are trying to break into my back line, but I do have Clan Rats as well as Clan Rats with Spears, so I should be able to defend here. And yeah, my Rat Ogres are taking a beating, but I do have a lot of these guys. They're going to be jumping in and just laying a beating on top of these Slaanesha's Harvesters, so definitely my back line I think is relatively safe for now. Granted, I have overcommitted to this one group, and Falcon might be able to slip through here, so he's probably going to be grabbing these Doomfire Warlocks, going right down the pipe and getting on top of these Natty Booba Sharpshooters as well as the Teethbreakers, so I'd really like to keep on line. Now the bounce power is a little bit in my favor. Obviously I've done some huge damage. The Supreme Sorceress has taken a beating, the Cryptus has also taken a beating, so that's pretty good. But yeah, he's going to be getting through here, might be able to get a nice charge. I do have some Rat Ogres in reserves, and the Slingers are just kind of throwing their pebbles into the spears, and hey, 1 damage at a time, it adds up over the course of a long battle. But here comes a very solid charge here from Falcon. The Doomfire Warlocks are just going to massacre the Teethbreakers, so they are an expensive unit. The Regiment of Renown, the Rattling Guns team, I think they cost like 1,000, so it's not like a cheap thing to loot. So he's able to get on there and do some pretty good work, and he also is on top of the Natty Boobo Sharpshooters, but I do have the Rat Ogres here, and I'm just going to be piling in all of my reserve troops. In the meantime, Skrulk Daddy is just running around dropping summons, and I still do have the Libra Bubonicus, so I was just waiting for the Supreme Sorceress to come back so I could potentially drop that, and the Cryptus is pretty much out of the picture. But the bounce power, pretty heavily in my favor at this point, haven't taken out the leadership, but the Shades are getting in there doing some decent work, but I just have so many rats everywhere. And yes, the rats are taking a beating on multiple fronts, but for the most part, summoning some Plague Monks here. I have Clan Rats up here on the high ground. Skrulk Daddy, of course, is still in perfect health, and he's going to be very tough to kill. But the Summoned Plague Monk's doing very good, and the Death Runners have actually been a bit of a decent force here on the flank. So what I did is I got the Death Runners, I attacked the flank, then I just moved down the formation, just making sure that even my Clan Rats and Skaven Slaves have a winning engagement, because the Death Runners are able to be mobile and jump onto the back of these Bleak Swords and Dread Spears. Now, if we look at the main formation here, the Rat Ogres are going to be laying a bit of a Pound Town beating here on the Bleak Swords, and for the most part, I should be able to move over to these guys. But the Caster has come back, so the Supreme Sorcerer is going to be dropping a Fireball on Skrulk, which always does a lot of damage. He is, of course, a flammable little rat, but I actually don't remember him being flammable, but I guess he is. So he's going to be taking a fat Fireball to the face. But what's really nice is, like, Skaven Lords used to get bullied super hard, right? Like, people just come in, they Fireball spam, they Spirit Leech spam, and they just Cycle Charge and kill them. But now that you have a couple more tools, like Suppression and these Snipers, it's a lot tougher to bully the Skaven Lords without taking a beating. So I'm really happy they have these defensive tools. Up here on the high ground, the Plague Monks are going to be attacking the back of these Dread Spears, but I will be force pathing them onto the Shades, just barely avoiding a Burning Skull there, which is going to be tearing down the formation. And of course, with the changes to summons, the Plague Monks aren't going to be taking perpetual damage, which is cool. I mean, it's nice. I think it's a good balance, because they're just going to disappear like that. So you can see all the Plague Monks just suddenly died because they're a summoned unit, but on that same note, like, they're going to be fighting at full capacity, and they're not going to be taking, like, unnatural damage. So I think it's a little bit of a better representation of a summon, and also pretty good for balance. So anyway, Skrulk is going to be moving forward, and that's pretty much going to be all she wrote for the Dark Elves, as the Snipers plus the Zap Cannon was able to just do lethal damage to that Supreme Sorceress. I mean, that was brutal. And the Cryptus as well. And I feel like when you're playing against Skaven now, you really have to kind of treat them like you would Vampire Ghosts, for example. So against Vampire Ghosts, if you bring like a Flying Lord or any sort of big targets up in the skies, they're typically going to be taking a ton of firepower from Noctilus, from Handgunners, occasionally Deck Gunners. It's a little bit risky, right? So now you have to respect the Skaven firepower. Probably go a little bit wider for sure, but it is tough, because how are you going to deal with, like, let's say Doom Wheels and Flares? I think the answer is probably just going with a bunch of like Coldwind Knights. Coldwind Knights are shielded. They're not like a super value target like a Cryptus or a Hydra, so you're not investing as much in that, and they're going to be able to really shut down like Doom Flares and Doom Wheels and things like that. So I feel like you just have to go very wide. The Shades were a really cool pick, actually. They didn't get to really get into their full form because the Cryptus and the Supreme Sorcerers really just took such a beating, and they were kind of on their own for some time, but I think that the Shades are a pretty solid pick, just kind of sneaking up, just like against Vampire Coast. You sneak up, you shoot down their guns, and you can see like 1 or 2 volleys from the Shades when they did get in position was really able to just destroy the Teethbreakers and do a ton of work. But it's pretty funny. In like all my games, the Teethbreakers get like 1 or 2 kills, but even still, they did a ton of damage. You guys saw they were able to suppress the Charybdis and really put a ton of hurt on the Supreme Sorcerers. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this game between the Skaven and the Blessed Dread, and we will be back with a second game. So it's going to be a hot 2 for 1, and I can promise you guys the next game is going to be very, very fun. So stand by, guys, and we'll see you in just a second. Cheers. Alright guys, and now we are back with game 2, which is going to feature a showdown between the Skaven, who shall be led by Ikit Claw, and if memory serves, I think he's going to be on his Doom Wheel. We're going to be facing off against Averlorn, who shall be led by the Princess. So as far as the build goes, we're going to be going for the Mass Doom Wheel. So in the last game, you guys got to see a very, gun-focused build. You got to see Rattling Gunners and Jezzails and all that kind of good stuff in the Zap Cannon, but this time we're going to be going in the words of Limp Bizkit, and we're going to be rolling. So that was so cringy. But anyways, we do of course have Ikit Claw. And yeah, he's got some really good tools, especially against like archers, right? He does have the Brass Orb. So the Brass Orb is a very, very good ability. It's an instant cast. It's a vortex. It does a lot of good damage against tightly armored units. So if they do have, let's say, Lothern Sea Guard or Sisters of Averlorn, it's going to be able to do a ton of work. So I like this ability quite a bit. On top of that, we do have the Death Frenzy. So I figured, hey, whenever the Doom players get in there, let's pop this. It's going to give them a ton of melee attack, pretty good weapon strength. And yeah, it's going to be solid. Let's try it. On top of that, I was kind of expecting a Dragon because Felcon, of course, is the Lord of Dragons. So having the Howling Warp Guild to kind of pin down the Dragon units, I think is going to be pretty essential, protecting my high mass units, because yeah, Doom players and units like that aren't going to be super good against dragons. So as such, I did bring one gun unit. So over here on the far side, I have the Natty Boo sharpshooters. I just kind of, got to keep that dragon on us. So hopefully we're going to be able to shoot that guy down. But for the rest of the army, it's just going to be straight Limp Bizkit. We do, of course, have Ikit Claw Doom players. We have the Wheels of Doom, the Regiment of Renown of the Doom Wheels. And we do also have the Dwarfing Menace. So the Dwarfing Menace is going to be getting in there. It has armor sundering, just great stats, just a badass unit for sure. And something about these Doom players that a lot of people probably haven't noticed is that they have 100 armor, which is already pretty good. But when they're in combat, when they're actually fighting in sustained combat, they get plus 24 armor, which is pretty badass. So these rats are going to be rolling in dirty, hopefully doing some good work. These Jezzails here in the back are going to be trying to pick off the princess. We got some rat ogres as well, just to defend. Obviously, if he has some cav units or dragon princes, I want something that can really punch those guys. Aside from that, it's just chaff. We got clan rats, Skaven slaves with spears, just a pretty chaffy little army here. So for the forces of Felcon, over here on the far side, he does have 2 dryads, so this has got to be one of the more unique armies. And Felcon obviously is just such a good player, very creative with his builds, but they're not just creative in a sense of being fun, they're also good and like practical. Just incredible stuff here. So he's got dryads. Dryads are going to be pretty good against like most Skaven chaff units, but against the new Skaven Doom Wheel metagame, right? Or I guess if that becomes a thing, like the Doom players and the Doom Wheels, Treekin are like the perfect answer. They did get a buff in this patch, so they now have 5 more melee attacks, so they went from 20 to 25, which is a pretty big change. But yeah, these guys are going to just be roadblocks. I mean, Doom players and Doom Wheels are really going to struggle against these. So think about it. He has answers for infantry. His Dryads and his Treekin can pretty much beat any composition of Skaven infantry, and his archers are going to be able to outrange Rattling Gunners and poke down Jezzails. They're shielded, of course, I think, at the Lothern Sea Guard. No, he actually just brought standard ones. But he does have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the Lothern Sea Guard here, some Dryads on the flanks, and a princess up in the skies, who's probably the only liability as far as its build goes, but she's still going to be a menace for sure. On the ground, he does have the Lore Master of Hoth with Spirit Leech, which is going to be super good, as well as Earthblood. So guys, on that note, let's get this show on the road and see if the foul forces of the Limp Bizkit Skaven can roll forth through this High Elf army or Averlorn army, or mixed forces, whatever you want to call it. So anyways, the Jezzails are going to be opening up right here, taking some pot shots at the princess, and she's taking a little bit of work, and you can see that, like most missile attacks, you can still juke the Jezzails. It's a little bit tougher than juking like an artillery piece, but for the most part, we're getting some really good damage here. You can see that the princess is trying to, drop some moves, but she still is wasting my ammunition. But the Jezzails, they have okay ammo. I actually think in the campaign, there's a mechanic in which you can like replenish their ammo during the battles, which is pretty badass for sure. But the princess is taking a bit of a beating. I could use a Howling Warp Gale, but I don't think he's going to be landing here. I do have some Rat Ogres in the back. But the really tough thing is going to be those Lothern Sea Guard. Once you're able to get in range, that's going to be pretty scary. And a breath attack coming down from the princess there, able to melt those clan rats, and just going to be sending forward the main force. So the Skaven slaves and the Rat Ogres are going to be piling in, which might be a little bit headstrong. Maybe I should have just fallen back, but the Warp Lightning is going to be getting dropped in the back. But I think that he's able to dodge it. Nope, that's actually some pretty good damage. So we're able to take out a couple models and do some good HP damage. In the meantime, the players are going to be going on the flank, so just trying to get away from the Treekin. The Treekin are just such good roadblocks against these out of control cars here. But for the most part, the players are playing these Dryads, and that's pretty good value. From there, we're just going to be rolling into the back line, trying to get some work done. But of course, he does have a couple of groups of Silver Helms, which have good mass. You're not going to kill them quick, but it's going to be able to hold me up and really allow his other troops to do a ton of work. But the rolling is going on. The Wheels of Doom and the Doom players are able to get some really good work against these Dryads over here. Well, not a ton of damage, but it's still adding up. And the entire time this is happening, the Jezzails are really tearing into this princess here. And if I can kill the princess, I feel like we might be able to clean up the rest of the forces just by, running around, because the dragon is one of the big threats to these type of units. But over here, the Skaven slaves and the clan rats, of course, taking a beating for the Horn Rat, and you can see the Lothern Sea Guard doing a beautiful job against the Rat Ogres. These bad boys are being pushed back and are going to be driven, way back in for sure. So at this point, I'm pretty much doing a tactical retreat, so I'm pulling back all the Rat Ogres. I'm like, there's no reason to have the Rat Ogres taking this Lothern Sea Guard fire. I don't mind so much the Doom Wheels and the Doom player taking the Archer fire, because, they don't have the best AP, and the Doom players, of course, are very heavily armored when they're in melee combat. So over here, a bit of a scary situation. The Wheel of Doom does take a lot of damage, and one of my Doom players just gets completely trapped in here. In the meantime, you can see the Jezzail shooting in there, and I think that was a Storm Demon coming in from Ikit Claw trying to shoot down the princess. I can't remember what that missile attack was. No, actually, maybe that was the Wheels of Doom. It's just, yeah, that was the Wheel of Doom lightning attack. But He's able to isolate the Wheel of Doom a little bit, so I'm going to be pulling forward some Rat Ogres to try and help out. But the Lothern Seaguard Overwatch Fire is so good. Felcon has just been doing a beautiful job this entire game, just shooting those guys to pieces, so it's a little bit messy for sure. So the Wheels of Doom are going to be pulling back, just trying to squeak away from here, and it looks like I might be able to barely get away. And here we get a great engagement. So over here, he over-pursued a little bit with the Dryads and Silver Helms, and from there, the Doom players, which actually aren't terrible against cav units. I mean, their stats aren't bad. 32 melee attack can usually hit most cav units. Good armor piercing, even though they're meant versus infantry. In numbers, they can still mulch down cav. So the Silver Helms do get Shrek'd right there and terrified. Ikit Claw, of course, does cause terror. So pretty good little situation. So in the meantime, we're going to be falling back, trying to resecure our line. And the bounce bar is really even, actually. I would say it's a damn close game. Our Skaven Slaves and other troops are going to be coming back. Jezzail's still just teeing off in the Princess, but we're going to be trying to get an Alpha Strike because, yes, the Dwarfing Menace is going to be able to sunder the armor. So we're going to be going in for the Princess right now. We're going in for the big strike. Ikit Claw and the Wheels are going to be charging in here. The Brass Orb in the back is going to be getting dropped from some of those archers. And this is the time. This is the reckoning. We need to kill this Princess right here. And we are getting some huge damage. The Doom players and Ikit Claw are able to melt down the Princess, and she is so low. And it looks like there's going to be an overcasted Earthblood going down, but hopefully the Jezzails are going to be able to fall back, restock, and then from there shoot down the Princess. So I do use a Howling Warp Gale as well, which is going to kind of block her in the skies, and the Jezzails will be turning around in just a moment to start shooting at the Princess. In the back, the Silver Helms are going to be re-engaging some of the Dragon Ogres, which is going to be a good engagement for me. Skaven Slaves are going to be jumping in here, as well as the Clan Rats or Spears, or I guess Skaven Slaves or Spears and Clan Rats. And we are able to beat down the Silver Helms, which is nice. But the biggest issue for this battle so far, again, like I said, is going to be dealing with the Treekin. And, you know, I can't remember the last time I was, like, in a competitive replay or, you know, a close, I guess, contested match. I mean, like, oh, those Treekin are really the difference makers here, but they're actually doing such a good job. And this Princess just won't get off the battlefield. 1,430 HP. The bounce power does slip slightly in the favor of Felcon. But the thing is I still have a ton of these Doom players. I have Ikit Claw, and now the Princess is pretty much 2P'd up to do anything. She's not going to be able to really threaten my Doom Wheels on the Dragon, simply because I can just like beat her up with even a single Doom player could probably take her out at this point. So she's going to be jumping in here, trying to get some damage, but it looks like she pulls back to the last second. The Jezzails are going to be taking some damage, unfortunately. The Lothern Seaguard, the inexorable advance of these bad boys, is going to be shooting up and just tearing into Natty Bubo Sharpshooters, doing some really good damage. So I do pop one more Howling Warp Gale, trying to get some shots, but the the Lothern Seaguard Archer Fire is able to force me back, so the Natty Bubo Sharpshooters are pushed back here, and I'm not able to finish off the Princess yet again, so just a huge failure there. But had I stayed, I would have lost all the Natty Bubo Sharpshooters, so I kind of just made a decision there. I'm like, I want these 14 models, and I think 14 of 24 it is. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I just want to keep those guys online and hopefully be able to kind of rally from there. So here we're going to be slamming these Rat Ogres into the flanks, dropping a fat, juicy Warp Lightning right here, which is going to be shrekking some of these archers, and it does some okay. It's able to roast some of those guys in the back. And Ikit Claw and company are, just kind of riding around, just picking off whatever I can, because of course most of his force is Treekin. Lothern Seaguard aren't super threatening against this like main Death Star I have, and it looks like the Princess is getting really low, and the Wheels of Doom are coming in for the rear ram. The Princess getting rammed to the back, and she's going to be going down to the Doom Wheels. So the Wheels of Doom and Ikit Claw are able to tag team the Princess and really just take her out right there. So in the meantime, the Doom Wheels are going to be pushing through. The Dwarfing Menace is pretty healthy. Jezzails are in okay shape, but they're pretty much out of ammunition, so they're not going to be a huge like playmaker here. But there is going to be a little bit of a grinding attrition, so I will do some fast forwarding. So I'm going to be dropping some Warp Lightning on those guys, getting the Doom Wheels and the Flares. At this point, I'm like, okay, I need to take advantage of my mobility, pick off all the Lothern Seaguard. The Treekin aren't really going to be able to protect them super efficiently, so the Wheel of Doom is going to block them. And you can see I'm just mulching through these Lothern Seaguard. The wheels are just rolling, and doing a ton of work against these guys. All of the Lothern Seaguard are pretty much offline. Now, my Doom Flares aren't in great shape either. These ones have taken some damage. The Wheel of Doom is almost dead, but Ikit Claw is full health. But the biggest issue, like I said, the Treekin plus the Lore Master Poet is really going to be another X factor in this game. He's tanky, he's still alive, and he means business. I mean, look at this guy. He's got that big old fat sword. He's ready to party. So I have some Rat Ogres coming back in the distance. The Lothern Seaguard, unfortunately, are back. And over here, a very good play here by Felcon. He's able to get some very beat up Silver Helms and chase off the Natty Bubo Sharpshooters. Granted, they were out of ammo anyway, so it's not really the end of the world, but for the most part, very good play. So Doom Wheels are going in here. We're going to be rolling through these guys, and the Doom Flares coming in. Let's go ahead and get you guys some close-ups of these guys, just lawnmowing these guys. The Doom Flares are such a cool unit. I really like the new Skaven stuff. I mean, I think that Lizardmen got like an equal amount of cool stuff, but just as far as like my personal playstyle, I really like the new Skaven units. They're so damn fun. Anyways, able to run through these Lothern Seaguard over here. These guys are going to be taking a beating for sure, and from there we should be able to chase them off. I mean, they don't have a ton of ammo, but yeah, still we need to get those guys off the battlefield, so he can't just sit, because if the Lothern Seaguard can sit amongst the Treekin, just shoot me and get free value, it's going to be really tough. Over in the distance, we're going to be using the two very beat up Doom Flares to chase off those Lothern Seaguard. Another Brass Orb is going to be going down, which is going to be tearing into the Dryads. And yeah, we're just rolling around. It's a very technical game at this point. The archers from Felcon are shooting in and getting incremental value. It adds up over the course of a long game. Warp Lightning is going to be going down, roasting some of those Lothern Seaguard. Now, I wonder if I should have been using Warp Lightning on the Treekin. It's something I don't use Lord Rune a whole lot, so I wasn't sure how much damage it does against like units like this, but perhaps that's something I've got to experiment with a little bit. with. So Ikit Claw's still pretty healthy, but the Lore Master of Hoth is going to be able to do some pretty good damage to him. But over here, the Flayers, I was trying to like see how they would do against the Treekin. So I left him fighting for just a moment, and man, they did not do much. But I do pull ahead on the Bounce of Power for the first time in the battle, which is good. I do, of course, have the Wheels, and the Wheels are just doing a ton of work, but I don't know. I feel like we're not going to be able to kill the Treekin as well as the Lore Master of Hoth. I mean, he is just so meaty and so tanky, but at the very least, he is an infantry unit, so I do have the bonus for his infantry. Doom Wheels are very good against infantry in general, and I also get some Rat Ogres back, so this is huge, but the Bounce of Power is just dead even. But Falcon coming in with the Steel Chair. He has the Spirit Leech, so the Spirit Leech is going to be getting dropped on Ikit Claw right here, which I did not see coming, and killing Skaven leadership is so damn good. Now, we are getting a little bit of grinding here, a little bit of bumping and grinding on the Treekin, wearing them down, so I was quite happy about that, but we still haven't killed any models. So at this point, we're going to be pulling the Doom Wheels over here, trying to make sure that we, aren't blobbing too much on one target. Going to be trying to wear these guys down a little bit, but for the most part, he still has that Lore Master of Hoth, but no archers are left. These ones are pretty much offline. These ones have like one volley left, so not really going to be a significant threat. But we're just trying to grind down these Treekin, but they have so much HP. These guys are so meaty. We just can't get them down. They still have 12 of 12 models, despite the fact that they're around 40% HP, so that is just such good value. And the other Treekin are going to be coming in as well. So at this point, it's just going to be a grind fest. I'm going to go finish off those archers, just make sure I'm not taking any shots, but you can see the forces of the Skaven are getting a little bit tattered, boys. The Dwarfing Menace and Ikit Claw are going to be fighting to the bitter end, but a Spirit Leech coming down. Falcon again with the metaphorical Steel Chair. Beautiful stuff. And it looks like the High Elves and Averlorn are able to take this game. So very, very well played. I think that was one of the more creative, cool builds I've seen in quite some time. It was very like thoughtful. He's like, okay, Treekin will beat everything else with the Dryads, and then the Archers will beat all of the Skaven missile units. It's very, very solid. Now, I think that like a build like a more traditional Skaven build would have given that one trouble. So let's say you go with the Giselle, a bunch of like chaff units, and then from there you can get some like Plague Claw catapults to tear apart the Archers. There are plenty of Skaven builds that would beat that one for sure, but nonetheless, it was a very cool, thoughtful build and a very, very solid game from Falcon there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that 2-for-1. We got to see a true Skaven firing force, and then we also got to see the Wheels of Doom and just the mass Limpus get Skaven build just going to town, and I felt like it was really good. It almost worked. It was a really close game. I just think a couple things. I needed a couple more answers for the Treekin, so maybe just mixing in like 1 or 2 more Giselles in the back, like cut a Rat Ogre, cut some infantry, like cut the Clan Rats, cut 1 Rat Ogre, just bring Skaven Slaves, get like 2 or 3 Giselles, and then the Doom Wheel, so you're just like shooting from downtown with the Giselles, and the Doom Wheels are just rolling through the infantry. So that would give you like a more well-rounded build, I think. Anyways, very well played at Falcon. Make sure to check him out on Twitch. There will be a link in the comment section below, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.